Romeo and Juliet, Act 2, Scene 5. You'll remember this scene takes place after Romeo has just met with the nurse. The nurse was ridiculed, mocked, scorned by Mercutio and Benvolio and even Romeo a little bit, and so she's not in the best of moods. This is one of my favorite Shakespeare scenes, and so if you'll pardon me for a minute if I get a little geeked out, but we have a lot of stuff going on here. We have plot development. This is a scene in which, if it weren't for this scene, we wouldn't know exactly how the marriage is going to take place. We have character development. We learn a lot more about Juliet and the nurse, and Juliet and the nurse's relationship with one another. And we have a lot of good language going on here. So this is a scene that I would refer to as, meanwhile, back at the Capulets' house, Juliet's waiting in the orchard. The scene earlier with Juliet in the orchard and Romeo on the balcony, Juliet on the balcony, of course, and Romeo down in the orchard. It's the same place. It's interesting to note that Juliet has never left the house. In the entire play, Juliet has never left the house, and as far as we know, Romeo's never been home. That's kind of an interesting sort of dynamic with what goes on with the males and the females in the story. And in fact, the only way Juliet can leave the house, it appears, is to lie about going to confession. And of course, her father would never question her leaving to go to confession because, well, you don't ask people why they need to go to confession. It's kind of a private thing. So it is interesting that she's going to lie about this religious thing. So this scene begins with a soliloquy. You notice I keep talking about soliloquies. There's the Queen Mab soliloquy with Mercutio in Act 1. I believe it's scene 3 or 4 on their way to the party. And Mercutio's Queen Mab speech is very much about character and about what Mercutio believes about fate and dreams. Then you have Romeo's soliloquy right at the end of that same scene, in which he tells us what he thinks. And he says at the end of the soliloquy, he that hath the steerage of my course direct my sails. He knows that he's going to die by going to this party, but he believes that there's nothing he can do about it. It is his destiny. And of course, we were told that in the prologue whenever they were called star-crossed lovers. So here we have Juliet's soliloquy. Oh, by the way, remember I talked about Friar Lawrence's soliloquy at the beginning of this Act 2, Scene 3, and how important it was that it showed us his character. Well, this we have Juliet's impatience, and impatience is a big deal. These two kids seem to be in a hurry to get married, to get their way. And Juliet is impatient because she's sent to the nurse to go find out whether Romeo was serious, and now she's been waiting for a long time, she feels like, and she's in the orchard and she's waiting, and finally she hears the nurse, and the nurse comes in, and the nurse is frustrated at Benvolio and Mercutio for having made fun of her. She's frustrated at her servant for not having taken up for her. She's frustrated at Romeo for not having taken up for her. So she's going to play a little game with Juliet. So she comes in, and Juliet starts questioning her immediately. And the first thing the nurse says in line 25 is, I am a-weary. Give me leave a while. Fie, how my bones ache. Okay, so it's been a long walk. She's a relatively heavy woman, evidently, from what we've seen. So Juliet gives her a second to rest, and then the nurse says in line 30, do you not see that I am out of breath? It's interesting that she's so out of breath that she can tell us how out of breath she is, but she's not so out of breath that she can't tell us what Romeo said. Juliet says, how art thou out of breath when thou hast breath to say that thou art out of breath? Yeah, that's a good question. Then the nurse says in line 38, well, you have made a simple choice. And this is where she begins negging Romeo by talking about what good qualities he has. Notice what she says. You know not how to choose a man. Romeo, no, not he. Though his face be better than any man's, yet his leg excels all men's. And for a hand and a foot and a body, if I was Romeo, I would not be happy about that. Though they not to be talked on, yet they are past compare. He is not the flower of courtesy, but I'll warn him as gentle as a lamb. Go thy ways, wench, serve God. What, have you died at home? Notice she still has not told Juliet what Romeo said. Juliet answers, and finally the nurse says on line 49, Lord, how my head aches, what a head have I. It beats as it would fall in 20 pieces. My back, to other side, on my back, my back. And at this point, you can guess that Juliet is now rubbing her back, doing whatever she can to get the nurse to answer her question. Then in line 53, Juliet says in faith, I am sorry that thou art not well. Sweet, sweet, sweet nurse, tell me, what says my love? The nurse says, your love says like an honest gentleman, and a courteous, and a kind, and a handsome, and Warren, a virtuous, where is your mother? Juliet, where is my mother? Why, she is within. Where should she be? How oddly thou repliest. Your love says like an honest gentleman, where is your mother? And the nurse still has not answered. We're 61 lines into this scene. Finally, the nurse says on line 68, have you got leave to go to shrift today? Have you had permission to go to confession? Juliet says, I have. And finally, in line 70, the nurse says, then hie you hence to Friar Lawrence cell. There stays a husband to make you a wife. And Juliet finally learns that Romeo, in all sincerity, intends to meet her that afternoon at Friar Lawrence's cell, and that they will be married that afternoon. The nurse also divulges to her that she will need to go to get some ropes, a rope ladder from Romeo's servant, so that he'll be able to get to her bedroom later that night. There's some sort of bawdy jokes in here that you can look them up and figure out what they mean if you want. But basically, it ends with the nurse telling Juliet exactly what we knew the nurse was going to tell Juliet all along, which, by the way, in case you're wondering, that's dramatic irony. When the audience knows more than a character on stage, Juliet has been left in suspense this entire time, and the nurse intentionally keeping her in suspense until finally divulging at the end that she indeed will be married. Now, the next scene takes us to later on in the afternoon. We're going to go ahead and talk about Act 2, Scene 6, because this scene's short. This is the marriage scene. I want to point out to you that up until this point, everything in the play has moved upward, if you're talking in terms of the plot diagram. We start with exposition at the beginning with the servants fighting in Act 1, Scene 1. Then we have all kinds of rising action. We have the scene with the boys on their way to the party. We have the scene at the party. We have the scene at the balcony. Then we have these scenes that we've talked about in the last few minutes. And finally, it culminates in Act 2, Scene 6 with the marriage. It could not be better. Everything looks like it's going well, and yet we were told at the very beginning, from forth the fatal loins of these two foes, a pair of star-crossed lovers take their life. Romeo and Juliet will not survive this. The friar has said that he will marry them in order to bring their families together, to end the enmity, the hatred, the strife between the two families. And he does, but he does not know how that's going to happen. He's already told us that he believes that sometimes things that you intend for good work out bad. Sometimes things that look bad on the surface work out for good. Well, there's the theme of the play. And so here we have Friar Lawrence's cell. Romeo and Friar Lawrence are waiting. Friar Lawrence says, so smile the heavens upon this holy act, that after hours with sorrow chide us not. Spoken like a true priest. Then in line 9, in answer to Romeo's talking about passion and love, he says this, these violent delights have violent ends, and in their triumph die, like fire and powder. Now that is foreshadowing. That's exactly what's going to happen. These violent delights have violent ends. We go on down. The priest, Juliet comes in. The priest separates them. They rush together as though to kiss. The priest separates them. And then in line 36, he says, for by your leaves, you shall not stay alone till Holy Church incorporate two in one. That's an allusion, of course, to, I believe, Genesis chapter 3, in which it says, and for this reason a man shall leave his father and his mother and cleave to the woman, and the two shall become one flesh. And you'll remember way back in the prologue, from forth the fatal loins of these two foes, a pair of star-crossed lovers take their life. One life. We know at that point that they're married. They will be married, they will consummate their union, and then the whole thing's going to fall apart. Act 3, Scene 1 is what we call the turning point of the play. If you're reading a tragedy, it's always the turning point of the play. It always is the place where the whole thing, if it had been going up and positive, turns around, and from this point onward, what we call, in a short story, we would call it a climax. From this point onward, it cannot, this is the point at which everything changes. And we're going to see that it's my second favorite scene in the play, because it's the one in which there's a great deal of wit. Mercutio and Tybalt and Romeo and Benvolio and the boys in the streets, and there's violence, and it's the sword fight, and so it's a lot of fun. But I'm going to leave you here at the end of Act 2 with good news. Romeo and Juliet are married, and we can expect that they will spend the night together at some point in Act 3, but not before tragedy befalls.